Hello. Today we have someone coming to us from Fairfield County, Connecticut, a town of Trumbull. Welcome, Christine. Happy to have you.
Happy to be here. It's so good to get to meet you guys in person. You're kind of like stars to me that I feel like, I'm
Oh,
like, oh
you're
my
so
God,
sweet.
I'm actually meeting them in person.
We were just saying how we feel the same about other people. We're like, oh, we're gonna see these people. Yeah.
So you watch us on YouTube?
I listened to you guys in the
Oh, good. Okay.
car.
Oh,
It's funny.
Okay.
I
good.
like found your podcast back in March, and you are like my companions back and forth
Oh,
to work, and I've been listening, and it's really been great.
How did
oh,
you come about listening to us? I'm always interested to see how someone's journey takes that turn to when they
Yes.
yeah, me
seek
too.
that out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's funny, like you guys talk about like coming out of the fog, and as I progressed through, I was like, talking to my partner and I'm like, I feel like no one gets me, no one can understand my perspective. And, I wonder if there's like support groups or things out there where you can actually find out or connect with people. So I started looking and I saw about your podcast, and I'm like, oh, let me take a listen, and it's been really great.
Oh,
I'm
good.
so glad. Yeah, I'm glad it's helpful. And
Me too.
yeah, yeah. And had you gone to therapy? Like we're finding still therapists that are not informed.
Not informed.
I have been to therapy, and yeah, no.
Isn't that unbelievable? It's just here it is, 2025, and still uninformed.
That's why these stories are so important.
Mhm. Yeah. And the community is important. And
Yeah.
No, absolutely. It's just good to have someone that's had at least somewhat similar life
Yeah.
experiences to you, that it's like, oh my God, like I connect with that. I get that.
Yeah. It's so true. Well, tell us your story. How you want to tell it. You can tell it from there or origin from the beginning.
All right. So I was adopted in 1972, like the tail end of
Mm.
the baby scoop. And I was adopted 2 months after I was born. So, from what I've learned now over the years, I was in foster care for the first 2 months until I was adopted. I was adopted through Catholic Family Charities, which, had the home for unwed mothers. And, that's
and
where,
was this in Connecticut?
yes,
Yeah, I
Okay.
yes,
was wondering
it
that or
was
New
in
York. Yeah.
Hartford. Yeah,
Mm.
it was in Hartford. So yeah, I was adopted by my parents. They had fertility issues. I tried for many years, weren't able to have children of their own. So they ended up applying for, to be parents, and that's how we ended up together. Um, you know, I always knew I was adopted, but I feel like it's kind of funny. I think we were all read some book, and
Yeah.
I was read some book, and I don't remember whether this was part of the book or if it was the way I understood it. But I thought everyone was adopted. So I
Oh,
was told that story, and it was just like, that's all kids come home, and I just remember, and again, I don't know if this came from a book but when you get a puppy or a kitten and the mother dog has babies, but they can't take care of them, so families come and adopt and bring it home. And again, I don't know if it was a story, but it was almost like my concept of, this is how people get puppies. Well, this is how people get babies,
Yeah.
which,
it is very similar,
I
except
was
that
gonna
with
say.
puppies, you are not allowed to take them away from their mothers so soon.
right, right.
They
You
have more
know,
grace than we do.
Truly. I mean, and it's weird. It's like we're all shelter pets of
Mhm.
Yeah,
sorts.
that's right.
Somebody comes, they pick you out, they give you a name,
Right.
and then your life begins from that point. as
And
far as you know it, right?
were you the only child? Did
I
they
was.
adopt? You were, okay.
I
Oh, for
was.
the whole, like, they never
When
adopted a brother or a sister, another child, a
No,
brother.
and from what I was told, they did try, but they were
Okay.
told they were too old, and too old at that point was 30 and 35,
Right.
but they'd already aged out of
I was wondering that because you said they tried for so long. So
yes.
if you were it, and were you close to them? Like when you were growing up, how did you feel in your house?
I mean, we were we were close. We were close. I think my parents had, I don't know, a difficult marriage. They didn't
Mm,
there was a lot of fighting, there was a lot of, just conflict between them. So, I feel like my mom was just sad a lot of the time.
Mm.
I think due to that relationship. So, I think I spent a lot of time growing up, just in my room, you know,
yeah,
Mm.
playing with dolls, listening to music, playing with my Barbies. As I got older, reading books. I like
yeah,
different things like that. So it's not like we had a bad relationship. It was just a very quiet
quiet.
house, So, as an only child and um yeah. So
Yeah. Sounds lonely a little bit in
Yeah,
your
that's what I was just gonna say.
was a little lonely. And, I
Mm.
had a really good extended family. Like we spent a lot of time together. So it was good. It was fine. But you know,
Yeah.
Did you feel different then?
y- yes and no. Like I said, for the initial period, I thought everyone was adopted. And I think I was like, I don't know, maybe first grade or something. And my friend's mom got pregnant. And I was like,
Oh,
what? That's how you can get a baby? And I went home and I said that to my mom, and she's like, yes, yes, that's how most people, do get their babies, and then came but we chose you and you're
oh,
special. And, this is how we got you. And we're so lucky. And, which then it was like, that reset of, oh, like I am a little different
And
from,
so then did you understand that there was another mother out there
yes. And that I
and
think
and
is
that shifted things for you?
it did, and it's funny because I think close to that time period, for whatever reason, we live close enough to New York City, and my parents took me to the city, and the big Broadway show at that point was Annie.
oh,
Mm.
yeah. Gosh, right, Annie.
So we go see Annie, and I'm like, whoa, it's like, oh my goodness. And I mean, I remember I used to sit in my room and sing that song. I don't know if you guys know it. It's like a song from Annie, maybe, where she
Mhm.
sits there and like dreams about who my parents are and why do they give me up. And, it just connected. And,
It
and that's
does.
where the wondering begins.
Yeah, it is. Sadly, I auditioned with Annie for a seventh grade show, and I'm not a singer, so I know that song well. I didn't win or get in the show, but I had to sing that song, and now I'm like, oh, light bulbs. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
funny. Poor, and everyone related to Annie, right? More than we knew.
Yeah.
Now
I
did
mean,
did
it's funny.
did your parents end up staying together or did they get
They
divorced?
did. No.
Oh, they did.
Um, yeah, they were committed to being a married couple.
Good, bad, and ugly.
Good, bad, and ugly. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Sure.
then how are do you have children?
I do.
We'll
I
get to that.
do.
But how were the teenagers and then after like how were you feeling? Did you have the rebellious part or more compliant or just
Yeah, I was definitely you know, wanting to stay in everyone's good favor.
Mhm.
There
Which
was
makes sense as an only child, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
yes,
kind of scary, I guess, in a way
yes,
to
yes. And again, I think just my parents' relationship just made me always want to just keep everything good and
Um,
calm and happy and what I could do to foster like a good, happy household. Like I just didn't so I tried. I think I was the, you know, try to always make the right decisions, try to do good in school, try to do what I could to just, so definitely. And you hear a lot of that, it's like the one way or the other. Either we want to make you happy and want to keep everything as good as possible. And so I definitely think I fell a little more into that category for sure.
So
But
when did you go through life?
yeah,
Where does this journey take you?
I mean, it was the whole adoption piece was so secretive and taboo in my household.
Oh, okay.
I
Oh,
and I at some point in time, and I can't even remember why, like I knew I was born in Hartford, and for some reason we were in the car and we were going to Hartford. I was with my parents. And, I was a little kid and I was so excited to see the town that I was born in. And I was in the back seat of the car and I was talking about it. And I just remember my dad being like, listen, you are our child. And that's
oh,
the end of it. And we're not talking about this again.
Hmm.
And
squash that curiosity.
yeah,
Wow.
and it was like, I
And
just,
make you it's shame. It makes you feel
Shameful.
shame.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
and it was
Like,
like,
oh, sorry. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And again, I think from his perspective, he thought that this was the right, like, you are ours, you are a part of us. I don't want you to worry about that or be concerned. I mean, you think about it differently as an adult, and to try to take their perspective in mind. But at the same time, it was like, oh, this is something that we don't talk about. And that's kind of how it was, because it's, you know, I looked enough like my adoptive parents that, at times we would get, oh my God, you look so much like your mom. And all three of us, oh yeah, I know. But like, it was never like, oh, she's adopted. It's really kind of funny that we all look alike. And it's even talking to my girlfriends, I had really close friends growing up, and I'm still friends with a lot of them. And it's like funny, like trying to think back, I'm like, I didn't tell anybody. Like, it wasn't something I was supposed to talk about.
Did
And
they tell you anything about your
mm,
first mother?
mm, no,
Nothing.
no,
Wow. I
no.
mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess it was the times, but then there's still a part of me that thinks if you're remotely evolved as a human, you would understand that everybody wants to know where they're from.
Yeah. No, I think I was just supposed to fall into, this is your family. We are your
Yeah.
family. There was no family before us. This
Blank slate.
blank slate. Yeah,
Yeah.
the blank slate. Um, so like in the last, I don't know, year, where I really started to think more about this. And I mean, how crazy, in 50s, and all of a sudden
No,
I'm going to start thinking about this.
we understand.
Mm-hmm.
And I reached out to my friends and I'm like, when did I tell you I was adopted? And it's funny, like I asked like three of them. They're like, I don't know, maybe eighth, ninth grade. And it was like a slumber party, and everyone's telling their little secrets, like girls do at slumber
Yeah.
parties. And that was my big, I'm adopted kind of thing, because it was still like this big secret.
Even that you have to whisper it, right?
Right. Right.
I wore it more like the badge, like
Mm-hmm.
I would tell people up front. I
Yeah.
don't know why. That was, but it's weird you had to even kind of think, oh, I'm not going to tell my friends. That's pretty,
Yes.
the message there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you go on. It wasn't until did you do a search prior to
No.
that? Was there anything that triggered when your
No.
children were born? Just
I mean, oh my goodness. Yes. I mean, no, I didn't do a search, because I think just that this isn't something you look into or think about. I think it was just embedded in me to the extent where, with my adoptive parents, I'm like, I can't do that. It was just like, that's not something. But, you know, as you guys have said and how everyone has said, when my first son was born, you know, and he looked just like me. I mean, to this, you know, I would go to parent teacher meetings and it would be like, oh, we know whose mom you are, you know, like,
Same.
you know, and it's like, it was just, you know, I think we all have that where you're looking at this first person that you are biologically related to. And it was like, wow, you know?
Yeah.
And then he was, Sam is his name. And Sam was like, I don't know, 6, 7 weeks old. And at that point, like I felt so bonded and so connected with him. And I could see how bonded and connected he was with me. And all of a sudden, I was like, when I was 6 weeks old or when I was 7 weeks old, I hadn't even been adopted yet. Like, who was I bonded with or was
Right.
I bonded with? And I think it was the first time I was really like genuinely sad,
Yeah.
you know, and it was like, oh my goodness, like, I don't, you know, and I think that was truly not like I didn't think about it or wonder, but it was the first time that I think I really had like the raw emotion of something significant happened to me when I was a baby.
The
Yeah.
enormity of it. I mean,
Yes.
Oh,
you know, the 9 months of pregnancy, the bond that you automatically
Yes.
have,
yes.
you know, it's really tragic, the whole thing.
While you're talking, I can feel it. It's almost
Yeah.
like I'm like remembering that
Yeah.
feeling. Yeah,
And it
that's
was like
tragic.
a grief. And I was just like really like taken aback. Like, did I not experience this? You know,
Yeah.
like, you know, and that's when, you know, you refer to that primal wound or the pre-verbal trauma and like
Mm-hmm.
where you have to start like thinking about that, like, wow, you know, this
Yeah.
happened to me, you know, and
Now,
Speaking of, oh, go
your
ahead.
partner,
yeah.
uh, husband, partner,
Yeah.
Yeah.
had were they aware of
Yeah, I'm wondering. That's
any
just where I was
like
going.
feelings or anything you were going through? Like you hadn't even talked about it to them?
You know what? Yes and no. So this was my first marriage. You know, we are divorced. So when I refer to my partner,
Oh, okay.
different relationship. But
Okay.
yes, I mean he knew that I was adopted. But again, not something that was really talked about much. It was just like, oh, I am. This is a part of
Yeah.
my background, and
I
yeah,
was
No
gonna
big
ask
deal.
you.
I was chosen by
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
family
yes,
and
yes, yes,
I was gonna ask you though, did you have attachment? Like now that I look back at my first marriage, I had major attachment issues, right? And abandonment issues and push away issues and I
yeah.
didn't deal with. Did you have that in your relationships with friends, men,
I don't.
women?
Yes and no. I mean, I think there's always, you know, the thought of, are you going to leave me? Is
Yeah.
this not going to work? Am I, you know, and just because of the fact that I think in that initial period of your life, you don't have that connection, or you did have that connection and it was taken away from you, you know. So I think in the back of your head, whether you know it or not, it's there, like, is this person I'm connected with not gonna want to stay around, or
Mhm.
you know.
Never
And
feels 100% safe.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and I think that's something we all carry, you
Mhm.
know. I think we, you know, you said cling to our children, you know, like
Yeah. Right.
you are, you know, you are the ones that I'm going to be a part of. Like, you know,
Mhm.
like we have this genetic connection and we will be, you know, together. And, but I don't know. I think as life has gone on, I've gotten better. Like, I think I'm much
Yeah.
more secure, but you know, that my first marriage, I got married really young. I think I wanted that family unit. I wanted to have kids. I wanted to
Yeah.
just be part of that, you know, and it was, you know, and again, I was young. It was a first marriage. It wasn't, you know, terrible. It obviously didn't work out, but
Yeah.
yeah.
What brought you to this point? Like at this year, you said it's been this year. What was the big?
Yeah, something must have triggered that.
So, fast forward, my kids were a bit older. They were, teenagers to, in that age. And all of a sudden, like they were saying, because I did, tell them that obviously that I was adopted and all that. And they were like, we want to know like what our ethnicity is. Like, we're so curious, do ancestry. So I'm like, all right. So I got the kid and I sent it off and it came and I'm like, oh my God, we're Irish, we're English, and they're all excited to find it out. And then I tabled it. It was like, there it is. And, you get your genetic matches and they were like distant, nothing crazy. And that was fine. And then fast forward a couple of years, and in my inbox was this email saying, oh, you have a message on Ancestry. So
Can I
yes,
just quickly clarify? You
yes.
knew nothing. Your parents had told you nothing. Nothing like your mother was a single, nothing. Like you're going into this blind.
So at this stage in the game, thank you. If we fast forward just a little bit, I ended up with an autoimmune disease, as if we keep talking about how many of us end up with these autoimmune diseases. And when we were going through the treatment, that was truly, I think, the first time my father's like, if you need to know your health history, I can, we can look into it. I can help you. Like, I know she was young. I know she was very, very young. That was it.
So they did know some things, they just never shared. Oh,
gosh.
Yes.
That's always
it's still, we can love our families and whatever. It's still enraging that we don't get access to our information.
No, absolutely. And funny enough, like I was so like into or just in the thought process that I would have in my head that, this was a secret and nobody knew. And, my grandmother passed away. I was like 40 and I'm at her wake and I'm standing there, with the family. And my grandmother's friend, comes in, sweet little old lady that I have known my entire life because she was a really good friend of my grandmother's. And I hear her whisper in that loud old lady way, oh, look, that's the girl that Margaret's daughter adopted.
Oh, no.
And I was like, honestly, I think it was, again, like, oh my God, all these people knew. And it's like, and then like rationally as a 40-year-old, I'm like, of course they knew. What did my mother just show up one day with a baby and everyone's like, oh, I guess we missed she was pregnant.
That's bizarre.
Right? Like, I don't know. I think there is definitely just a piece of me that, again, was so ingrained with this is a secret that nobody knows about. And, and looking back, I'm like, I just think I like really just put it in the back of my head, in the back of my, like, I just.
It was in a box up in the furthest corner of the garage, compartmentalizing.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So that's why when I got this email, it was like, I sat there and I was like, huh, so I go into Ancestry, go into my inbox, and there's an email and it says, I see we're a close match. I'm trying to see how we're related. I think you're my niece. And if so, that would really be wonderful.
Oh.
And I was like,
wow.
And it was like, I think I sat there for a couple days with it, just really, just wow, like there, and I really did start to think. And I don't want to say for like the first time, because obviously I have, but this was like, I have another family out there, like legit. Like this isn't just some like,
Yeah.
and yeah, and
I think when you're suppressed like that, like I had a not as deep as yours, but
Mhm.
when my family found me, I was like, what? I mean, they exist, but I never really knew they existed. I don't know. It's like
Exactly.
you sitting there. I sat there for days too, and that's such it's just like, whoa. Because
Yeah,
you think you'd want to answer right away, right?
I know. And it's like, am I going to open Pandora's box?
Huh.
Because once I reply, this is it. I am in. I'm going to find out things that
We're assuming you did reply.
I did. I did. I did. Um so and so now we just started like on Ancestry, like messaging each other back and forth, and first of all, it was very sweet, and then finally I asked the question. I'm like, how do you think I'm your niece? And she was like, were you born in January of 72 in Hartford? And I was like, yes, and I was like, on the 27th. And she was like, you're my sister's daughter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
And yeah, I remember, getting that message back, and I just cried, you know.
Mm.
It was
Yeah.
it was like everything just coming together, and then it was the questions that you have, like, how did I come about? Like, what happened? Like, why did they give me away?
Did she always know about you? Like she knew from then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And to this day, like, she's this my aunt, and I also met my birth mother, but that they were best friends. So but she was the only one that knew. No
Mm.
one else knew. So the other aspect of the secret being kept is that they were the oldest two of six kids. No one else knew. No one else.
Her parents didn't know. She went and stayed with the
Oh no,
sister.
I apologize. Yeah, the
Oh, okay.
parents knew. So
Okay.
my grandparents knew, but none of the younger siblings.
And did
Wow.
they sent her to a home?
Yes,
She was a girl who went away.
Mm-hmm.
she was
Truly.
definitely. And oddly enough, in the book, as I was reading along with you guys, one of the um, girls and the girls who went away actually went to the same home that she was in. And
Oh.
as I was reading it, I'm like, oh my God, that's where she was. That's where she was. So it was, yeah, it was kind of neat. But
So did you meet your aunt first? Like, did she?
Yeah, I'm wondering. No.
no, I mean, because she actually lives in Utah. So it was
Mm.
just a couple of, we messaged for a bit, and then we ended up actually talking on the phone. But, she gave me the background of, she was 16 when she got
Mm.
pregnant. This was her high school boyfriend. They loved each other. When she found out she was pregnant, he's like, we're going to get married. I'm going to get a job. We're going to be able to do this. And, um,
Oh.
God, like George and Margaret and
Yes. I
American
was just
Baby.
thinking the same thing.
yes,
Mhm.
he was the story like, I'm going to get a job at the gas station, and you can,
Yeah.
it was like they were like ready, and they went to their parents and they're like, this is where we are and this is what we're going to do. And they're like, no, that's not what you're going to do. No,
And they didn't stay together.
they did not.
No.
From what I was told, like once that happened, his parents were, very good about separating him out to
Mm.
make sure that, he had his
His,
life and he
right. His
could move
reputation.
on. And yes,
Mm.
so he supposedly went on to, you know, try to live whatever good life he was supposed to live. And she was sent to the home, and she was there, and she gave birth to me like a week or two after her 17th birthday. So she was 17 by the time I was born. And it's funny because listening to other people's stories about whether, the baby and the mom are allowed to be together, she was allowed to keep me with her for 5 days.
Mm.
So for 5 days, we were together. And I guess at that fifth day, she was supposed to sign the papers and go home. And when her parents came to pick her up, she was like, no,
Mm-hmm.
I want this baby. I want to keep her.
Gosh, it's so heartbreaking.
And so they're like, well, you still got to go. So they put her in the car and they brought her home. And what I found out, that missing 2 months of my life, she was just refusing to sign the papers. Like she was just fighting with them. Like, I don't want to do this. I want my baby back. I want to go pick up my baby.
Yeah.
And I think at that 2-month mark, she just realized, I mean, she didn't have their support. They weren't going to allow it. She's 17 in high school.
How
And
sad, but she loved you.
she did. I mean, my aunt told me like she had my picture that she slept with under her pillow every night.
Oh,
Gosh.
well, you did bond. That's who you bonded with.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And
We
I
did.
wonder, sometimes I wonder if that early bond with your first mother maybe gives you a leg up with your own, like, I don't know.
We
Yeah.
talk about that. I had that too. I had it 5-6 days. And you wonder, does it help you? I think it might. I don't know.
Yeah, because I didn't. I
No.
wasn't even allowed to be
No.
held, and I
No.
for
It's-
sure 100%, have a hard time with intimacy and
Yeah.
attachment.
Yeah.
Right to the arms of strangers,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. So then there was that foster care period, but I mean, it really affected her like
I'm sure.
significantly.
Mhm.
I mean, from what I was, told between her and a lot of the background from my aunt, like she was really fell into a state of depression that lasted. I mean, she had to be admitted many times for severe depression. I mean, it affected her. And,
Okay.
it's like as an adoptee, I think we take on, and it was like learning that was like my mere existence like affected someone else's life and not in a positive way. It really made things hard for her. And and that really made me sad. Still makes me sad.
Did she? So you've met her or talked to her, or
Yes,
did she have other children?
she did. So the aunt who I initially spoke with, ended up calling her and being like, we found her. We found her for you. And, so they gave me her number, her my number, and then she ended up calling me, and what a sweet, sweet, kind lady, and we talked, a good couple of hours. And she ended up getting married, and she did have 2 sons. One is 8 years younger than me, and one is 10 years younger than me. And I think we talked a couple of times, and she told me about them and her life, and they didn't know, they hadn't known about me.
Do they know now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, good.
So it was like that second or third conversation. She was like, I told them, and they're happy about it. And she's like, I'm going to give you, their phone numbers. So she sent them over to me. And funny enough is, you ever like save a contact on your phone? So now I have these brothers somewhere and I'm saving the contact on my phone. And by accident, I ended up dialing the number. So all of a sudden, without intending to, I'm like calling this brother who I've never met before on the phone. And I'm like hitting the button, like, hang up, hang up, hang up. And it hung up. And I'm like, and then within like 30 seconds, my phone rings from the same number. And I like, all right, I got to answer. And I answered. And it was like the sweetest thing because I was like, hello. And it's like, here you're my sister.
Oh,
He's like, I've always wanted a sister. I'm so
Oh.
excited about this.
Aw.
And that's how our relationship began.
That's pretty
Uh,
cool, actually.
Does anyone live nearby you? Is your first mother still near?
she did, but she since has passed away.
Oh, she
Oh, I'm
has.
sorry. So that
Yeah.
must have been recent.
Yeah, it was last year.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
It was last year. So, I mean, we did have like a period. Like I ended up meeting her, we spent like a good day together that first day. And like I said, just lovely, lovely, kind,
Yeah.
sweet person. So we spent that day together. I came back up. She ended up living like an hour away from where I live. So, getting in touch with each other, seeing each other wasn't difficult because we did live close enough. And then I ended up going up to her house a second time and met my brother, my youngest brother, and his sons. He has three, but I met his sons. And again, it was like bang. I was just accepted. Like he brings his little boys. He's like, "This is your Aunt Christine," and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm somebody's aunt for for real." It's like,
I love this.
yeah. So that was all very sweet. And then, like a month later, my aunt, who I said lives off in Utah, was like, "I'm coming to visit. I really want to meet you." And I'm like, "Okay." And she comes and they ended up like having a picnic and they invited the entire family. And we're talking big Irish Catholic family. So we're talking like a lot of people. Um, so yeah, so then I met like aunts, uncles, cousins.
How did that feel for you, being an only child and thrown into this?
It was a lot.
Yeah.
And, not because they were so welcoming and like there was never a moment where anyone was like, "Oh, this is weird." I mean, they were like so welcoming, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it's like, I don't know any of these people and they're all here to see me and meet me,
Yeah.
and fortunately, like two of my sons actually went with me that day. So it was good to have them there. It was good. They were excited.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's a good family. So over the course of, I don't know, a couple of months, like all my boys came up and they met her and she spent time with them. Like she wanted to get to know them so much. And, she'd been waiting her whole
Nice.
life to find me again.
Mm.
And I don't know, she had said like every year she would go back to the adoption agency because you can't connect unless the other person reaches out, and every year she would go and
She
check.
tried. Yeah.
Yes.
She is like Margaret.
these stories are so sad. It's just such a lost time and robbed
Mhm.
time,
Yes.
Rob
robbed
time.
of that family. And she obviously died young.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was, you know, like this whole initial period and, from when we met until when she passed away, it was probably like a year and a half.
Oh.
And I think, we met that initial period and we, got to know each other. But, I'm like a bit of an introverted person, and so it was, a development and we would text regularly. meaning like every like week or two would be like, oh, how's it going? What's going on with you? Or we talk on the phone. We got together like every couple of months. But, it was a relationship that I just assumed she was in her 60s, like we had years to develop this. There's no crazy rush. And you know, I got, my aunt called me and she's like, um, I talked to Pat. She had like really bad bronchitis, and they think it's pneumonia, and I'm like, all right. And then I don't know, it was like 2 days later, and they're like, oh, they did an X-ray, CAT scan. She's got lung cancer.
Oh,
It's like, oh, and and I text her, I'm like, oh my gosh, are you okay? And she's like, no, it's gonna be fine. I'm meeting with the doctor, in a couple of days, and they're gonna put together a treatment plan, and I'll let you know. Um, and then I texted her like the following week, like, hey, how you doing? And I didn't hear back. And then probably, I don't know, like maybe days, maybe a week later, um, I got a phone call from one of my brothers, and they're like, "Listen, she got sick really, really quick, and
wow.
we should have called you sooner, but we don't think she's going to make it. They said she's not going to make it." And I was like, so yeah, I left work. I got, I called Rob. I'm like, this is happening. And we got in the car and we drove up there. And yeah, she was not awake. And my brothers were there, and the three of us sat around her bed, like holding her hand. And it's funny because one of my brothers was like, do you know this is the first time the four of us have actually been in a room together?
Oh,
And it's now. And we sat at her bedside that like whole night. And I went home that night, and in the morning my brother Andrew called me and he's like, she's gone.
yeah.
So sorry. That's really painful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the relationship that I thought we were
Yeah.
gonna have was just not
Gone.
ever, and even like that night, like she was obviously just not not doing well. And it's like I just had to say goodbye to this mother who had loved me my entire life, whether I knew it or not, was, you know, going, and I just,
Yeah.
I just remember whispering, I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so sorry, you know?
I think you brought her so much healing. Think of her meeting her grandsons and you and waiting
Mhm.
all that time. I mean,
Yes.
I feel the losses for you so much, but you must have brought her so much healing just hearing this.
It's,
Mm.
I mean, and she had said that, like, so, like, this was so great
Yeah.
for her. Like, she literally glowed. And I don't know if like ever in my life before, as when I met her, that first time we met, that first time our eyes connected. I mean, just that unconditional love,
Mm.
that glow, that smile, that shine, is it was there. And you could tell that it was always there, whether she had me in person or not. And it was just really sweet that first time we met. She had like a little gift wrapped box, and I was like, oh, and I opened it and it was this pretty necklace with my birthstone. And she was
Mm.
like, I've been waiting your entire life to be able to give you a present. Every Christmas, every year on your birthday, I wanted to give you a present. And yeah.
And it's the first time for you that unconditional love too, right? Like, I not that your parents didn't love you, they did, but that's just it's so different, right? Was it
Yes. It
like
It was, it was, it just, and being a mom, and knowing that love that you have for your kids from the beginning before they're even born.
Yeah.
And then being like, wow, this was that person that had that for me.
Mm.
Now, did you look for your father? Did she talk about him?
She did. And that she did. Like, I know his name, I know where he was born, I know, all that other stuff. So definitely I have, but it is arduous. It's first of all, it's in this day of online and social media and all that other stuff, it's like he's a ghost. It's like, like I search, I've looked, I found obituary for his father. So it lists, the grandparents predeceased by his wife. So now I know my grandparents have passed away, predeceased by their son so and so, who was like 27, so he's obviously passed away. um Two remaining children, who one would be my birth father, one would be his sister, she has passed away. So, like, kind of crazy. So now he, in this obituary, is still alive. But
listen, my biological father is like that too, and my son
yeah,
found him through voting records. I'm just giving you that little tip.
well, it's funny enough, is I literally have done all these bizarre, like, like,
Yeah.
he's got a very common last name, so it's like, there's that piece. But I have done like high school. I like know what high school
Crazy.
search. I know the town. I've done like record searches of last known address. Um, like,
It's
even
time for a search angel.
I know. Yes.
perhaps, and so on Ancestry, I've gone on there, and now they could actually separate maternal, paternal. So I was looking
Right.
at the paternal matches, and there are a couple probably as close as like a third cousin or a fourth cousin. And I sent out emails to anyone that was like a third or fourth cousin. And there was one person that actually responded, and I did the typical, oh, we're a genetic match, I think I was born, blah, blah, blah. And one person actually reached out and, was like, oh, thank you for reaching out to me. It looks like we are cousins. And yes, I do know I am related to them. And then it got a little weird because then it was, I'm so glad you were adopted. I hope you were adopted into a loving family. We have completely lost touch with them. They were not a good family.
Oh.
They were, you know, and and that's kind of how she left it. Like, there were just a lot of issues in the household, um, and that was that. I emailed back a couple of times, and she never emailed back. So then it's like, what? Like, what actually happened there? So I continue to do like the Facebook stalking, like you do, and seeing like who's related. So the aunt, who would be, his sister, had a daughter. And when I looked and just did like one of those, like, searches where it looks for past addresses and social media and emails and phone numbers, and for who would be my first cousin, same thing. I've emailed, I've sent the thing, your typical like, hi, I think we're related, reach out. I just want to know like my medical history or something, but I still haven't heard back from her. So I reach out to Catholic Family Charities and said, hi, the same thing. Hi, I would like to know, a little bit about my background, my history. where was I those missing 2 months? I know I was in foster care. And the whole thing is terrible, right?
Yes.
It's like you're like begging people, like,
Yeah, I was going to say begging.
help
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Like, please help me with this information. And honestly, the woman who emailed me back was very nice. Like, this is our process. I'm happy to help you, blah, blah, blah. Sends me the forms. And, I did do everything that was required. But when I got the form, I was like, first of all, in order for them to even access your records, you needed to be able to provide the names of your birth parents, the towns where they were born in,
Oh, come
where
on.
you
They
have,
make it impossible
but that's,
Yes.
and it's funny because I was like, what
purposefully.
if I didn't know that? Like, how would
Right.
I have filled out this form? I happen to know their names now, but 5 years ago I didn't. So if I
Yeah.
chose to do this, it wouldn't have been
That's
an
the
option,
point.
right?
Right. Yeah. This is not an accident.
So it's like all this information you have to provide, and then you have to actually write up why you want to know what you want to know.
A
And then
good college essay version.
yes, seriously. And then you have to get it notarized.
Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable.
So
Yeah.
then I had to get it notarized, and and then there's a fee, but I send it in, and I sent it in months ago.
Oh, nothing.
Nothing. I've called, the voicemail box is full. I emailed. I finally, maybe a month and a half after, to just, did you get it? Did you get it? Can you just let me know? Did you receive it? And then like a month later, I got an email. Yes, sorry, I'm going to look into it. I'll get back to you. And then another month and a half goes by, and I'm like, hi, remember me? You were going to get back to me. And it was, oh, that's right. I'm going to look for your records right
My
now.
gosh.
I'll get back to you. And that was like 2 weeks ago. Like,
All
so
right. I'm
still
gonna get
ongoing.
I'll connect you with a search angel I know. And she can help you.
Yeah, I can't stand
That's
it. It's
ridiculous. I
ridiculous.
know. I know. Um, I have a question about your adoptive parents and
Yeah.
Yes.
how did they handle all this?
Well, so my adoptive mom passed away 10, 12 years ago.
Oh,
Mm,
okay.
So it ended up just being my dad. And honestly, I was really apprehensive about telling him, obviously. Again, this whole, thing we didn't talk about thing. And so I was nervous. I was nervous to even broach the subject. And then when I did, he was okay. I mean, he was like, I think the first day that I told him, he's like, "Are you sure? I don't know. Do you think these people really are who they say they are? Is this like somebody trying to scam you?" And I'm like,
Sounds like my dad. Yeah.
right?
DNA.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm like, all right, I think it's legit. I think it's legit. And then after I met her, I think her name was Pat, by the way. So after I met Pat, she, I guess, social work for the first year into adoption would come and do like home visits. So I guess the social workers, because she was still reaching out, still wanting to get me back, even though, they'd made her sign the relinquishment papers. So I guess they would take pictures of me at my parents' house and give them to her.
Wow.
So she actually had a picture of me. And honestly, there are similar photos of me. I must have been like 6, 7 months old at that point, in this little chair that, was at my parents' house, because there's other pictures of me. And she gave it to me, and I brought it home and I gave it to my dad. I'm like, it's legit, Dad. Like, look,
Wow.
she has this picture. This is your house. The social work gave it to her. And at that point, I had pictures of her, and we definitely look enough alike where he
Yeah.
looked at it and he's like, "Oh my, this is her. This is her." And
Maybe with your mother being gone too, he's not as protective.
I think so.
little
I
bit,
think she
I'm
would have
guessing.
had, I think she would have had a really hard time with it. And so yeah, so as you know, as things have progressed, you know, now even my brother Matt, who lives close by, he's actually come over to the house a couple times. And you know, I'm like, Dad, you know, my brother's coming over. And he's like, can I meet him?
Oh,
Can I meet him?
Okay.
And I'm like, I would love for you to meet him, you know. And he came over and they met and stayed for dinner, and we all had like dinner together. And at one point, my dad's like, you guys, you guys have so many similarities, the way you laugh, the way you do this.
Oh,
And we're like, yeah,
that's good to hear.
yeah,
It's not often
Mm.
the case. That's nice to hear.
yeah, yeah. So
Thank you, Christine. Your story's been so heartwarming and sad and all of the things, and I really appreciate you coming on and sharing it with us.
thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. You guys
And
are really doing great work. I think you're
thank
helping a
you.
lot of people.
And
Thank you.
you're helping too, because people hearing this will think, you know, time does go on. People do die, and it's important if you're going to do things to kind of do it, right?
No, absolutely. I mean, definitely. No one knows.
No one knows. And I am happy offline we'll
Yes.
get you the search angel.
And you need to update us because this is too close.
Yes,
It's like, come
Yes.
on.
absolutely. I
Yes. No,
know.
absolutely.
Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much.
It's been
Thank you,
lovely.
guys. Yes.
Bye.